Alright, so we are live and we have Patrick here with me in Google Hangouts, and Patrick has been asking me to give him some advice on character sculpting on the glabella area. The markings you see here, that's I think where he struggles, if that's correct. And yeah, today I'm just going to talk about that and try to help him improve in these areas. And luckily he also gave me some of his refs so we can understand that better. So yeah, hello Patrick. Cool. So it's a cool, ambitious project. To start off, like just looking at this, it's a really solid, clean sculpt already. And just look at this without the painting, I guess. And right now I have my skin shader on that, so let's switch off to basic. Turn that down a bit so the highlight is not as strong, right? So what I like about your stuff right now is it's not clustered with details, which is really good, and it's easy to work with you. Like at 300k, which is also nice. I'm just gonna do a quick test stroke to see how dense it is. And yes, you can see like it's really easy to adjust things and smooth things out. So I usually do like a test stroke and see how big that is. I'm just gonna look at it from different angles and think, looking from the profile and the front, it doesn't look too shabby actually. It does convey good lighting information, if you know what I mean. It does convey that light information. But looking at the 3/4, it's a bit flat, as in it's really this, you know. So this is one area I think we can improve on. And especially in here, if that looks really, even though we're on perspective mode, you know, that's something I noticed already. And just looking at from the top as well. So I think looking at the shadow in here, right, and that sharp angle, you know what I mean? That doesn't convey the volume. Even though I'm not looking at the reference right now, I think that's my gut feeling. Improve on that. So what we're gonna do is like just grab the move tool and see. Look at those areas. Maybe we just mark them, right? So this is one area you need to look at, which is a bit flat, and that's the volume. And the thing with the forehead and the head in general is it's the one muscle which is really important for that one. So there's basically two. The one is corrugator, so that's like something like that, right? Corrugator. I don't know the English pronunciation they do because it's Latin, right? So that's actually more something like that, you know. Corrugator or corrugator, something like this. You know, that goes across that orbital fold, or like in here. You know, so that lies on top of that. And the other one is actually the procurus, which is something in here, if I'm not mistaken. And that's something you actually painted on as well. So the thing with this area is the skull might look like something like this, you know, but to me right now, if that would be the skull, the muscles would be missing, you know what I mean? So it doesn't look, if I just flatten that out, and it's not by a lot, but you know what I mean, like it does have that really flat look. So let's move that back, and I think, why don't I just make a layer for you and send that file back if you want. So let's call it adjustments. And it's not a lot actually, it's like I said, it's a solid base, it's really nice and clean, which I like. It's just that extra thing around that area, which I'm not too comfortable at. I think we can definitely improve that. So, looking at the skull, And the thing with me is I'm more of an intuitive sculptor as well. I don't necessarily know all the muscle names, so sometimes I have to look them up as well. But I definitely understand where they are, you know. So right now we're just trying to smooth everything out and see the underlying base shape. So here, without looking at the orbital fold, let's try to bring that down and add them later on, right? So right now I just try to figure out the skull shape. Which is a bit flat, so let's take the move brush and move that a bit inside. And the thing with that area as well, because the eyebrow on a lot of portraits you're gonna make, the eyebrow sits on top of it, right? Like, it's really misleading sometimes. So to have, some people have that bone structure up here, and their eyebrows like sitting in between that here, you know. So sometimes it's really misleading for some people, you know. I'm not saying it's this case, but I just want to figure out his skull structure basically. And looking at his reference, I'm just going to pop that back. How do we do this? So now just looking at this, right? We see here that it's really prominent, especially from this shadow. And here is the corrugator, as you can see. It's really prominent here, and there's like two bulges basically. You know, from this is not. I mean, it doesn't give us a lot of information in terms of the temporalis muscle or anything else. It's just two rim lights, which is a bit distracting for us in this case. I mean, this is good for these shapes, but we're looking for the sides and the temples right now. So here it's really prominent, you know. I would assume that is his skull structure up here, and his eyebrows a bit in between those two, you know, like the bone. So that's something to look out for. So we know there's definitely a volume in here. So let's see. Just trying to, you know, massage it in the right direction without touching too much. So we got to establish that shape first, and I think what I usually do is to help me decide where the corrugator is. If I damp standard that one, something like this, that shape, right? That helps me a lot actually. I sometimes do that as well, and I just smooth that on the upper side. So I'm just going to smooth here, right? I'm not going to touch this side. On this mesh and layers, alright. So I'm just going to smooth that for now. And then I go over a bit, you know. So right now we move this a bit back, and it's a constant double checking from front to profile, and especially the 3/4. So when I work on a 3/4 view, you see my brush moving this way, but my eyes are actually here, and I'm just looking at the silhouette, right? So what I'm usually do is, like, if I'm a symmetry on, whoops, you know, you want that dent basically, if you see my mouse in here, right? You want that dent. So I'm just gonna see where that is. There's something in here. So what I'm gonna do is take the clay brush, and then I'm like slowly try to massage it out a bit, that volume. You know, my eye is constantly on this side, on the 3/4 silhouette basically, even though I'm working on the other side. Something like that, and then we smooth that out a bit. Let's double check now. So now I think that looks already more natural. It doesn't come as too flat. Alright. So now let's see. And also if you got questions, just shoot, right? Like don't wait. Okay. Alright, so in this case I'm just gonna, the thing is like with something like this, especially on your model, because it's so clean, it's so easy to like to redirect, you know, like the where you want to go, and it's easy to fix. And the eyelids were like slightly hinted, so they were not properly modeled in, which is really nice to fix. So right now I'm just like trying to make them flat so I can adjust it better, you know. Alright, here as well. Okay, so smooth that out a bit. And we're going to talk about the whole eye later on. But right now, so the corrugator might not be the most accurate one, but it's going something like in here. And the corrugator, oh no, and the, what is it, Procurus, something like this. And here the muscle fibers going up, and then in here you got orbicularis oculi, which is also down here, you know, it's like that typical loop, but that lies on top and we need to give that a bit of volume. So I'm just gonna undo that, and with that markings just sculpt that a bit up. And we try to blend, you know, the transitioning. So right now I'm not actually looking at the reference. I just try to see if I can fix that. And now I'm gonna smooth, and you can also like set the smoothing intensity down, which helps a bit as well. It's more forgiving, especially if you work on a clean model like here. So already you got something to work with. And let's take the move brush and move that bit out as well, just to give some volume, you know. Move that down just a bit. Now, let's see. I think that is, sorry. I think that transition already makes it much better. Like, it does feel more believable, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Alright. So let's look at the reference, because everybody has a different, like, skin connects really differently on each person, you know. So let's look at the reference. I can see this is really hollow on here on his face. This, and the thing is, like, you shouldn't make a hollow inset like this and like just leave that open, like, because it's gonna, you need to transition that better, you know. Like, even if you have this, right, you need to transition that better to the nasal bridge, you know. All right, so now that we established something like this, we can actually tackle the eyelid. And right now we're working symmetrical, which is alright. And let's see, looking at his reference, he his orbital fold really well, his eyelid is really prominent, to be honest. Like, you can definitely see it in almost every reference you sent me. It's really strong. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark where the eyelid's gonna be. So right now I'm just marking, right? It's just giving me like an idea. Something like this. Should be perfect. And the thing what I like about yours is your eyelid already encapsulates the eyeball really nice. It's just watch out for the thickness in here. So always make sure there's enough flesh sticking out. You know, don't make it too thin. So be careful with that, because that at the end will give you that spherical look, so it doesn't look as too flat, you know. So right now we established the eyelid, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sculpt, give that a bit more volume, and I'm gonna transition that to the caruncle in here. I mean, it's just subtle, it's just a hint, you know, like, I don't want to do that for you, so I want you to make it final, you know, but it's just a hint, so we know. And I mean, if you're doing that portrait, you gotta adjust the proportions anyway. I'm just talking general stuff, generic stuff, you know. And now what I do, just mask it, right? And he actually has a really really strong inset, to be honest. So either you could do this, take the move, and then use the move, hold Alt and move the upper ones a bit up inside. Try not to move the lower ones, the lower side of the upper eyelid. Just give that a bit more space. And then we're going to invert that, right? And looking from the profile, it does have a nice strong step actually. So you get that nice strong step, you see, here, and then in his eyelid. So his orbital fold actually is a bit stronger in here. And I'm not sure, I think it's also in that one reference, he does look a bit older. You can definitely see what it, so as if you age, the orbital fold gets really saggy. Or not really saggy, but like it gets less volume, so try to sculpt that in as well. Like, younger people tend to have that orbital fold, which is, you know, really prominent, but I'm gonna do the opposite, and it actually just is a hanging skin type, you know. So we're gonna sculpt that out, and then in here, like maybe it's useful to make that triangle, right? Like, you know, so this area, right? You can actually leave that on. So all we gotta do is blend that in together. No. Something like this. And what it does, I really like those kind of orbital folds, because it does give you that look of a sphere being inside, right? Like it does encapsulate better. Do you know what I mean? Like this, it does look like it continues to be an eyeball inside. Just really nice. So if you're doing the eyelid, some people have that as well. Usually it splits. So to have that little, I mean the resolution is not as high right now, but let's say sometimes they split in here, or it's like a little detail, right? So to break it off, so that's something you can keep in mind. And we're going to continue on the orbital fold up here and continue that over here, right? And then we're gonna, the thing with that is they just don't end up here and that's it. Like they usually transition further, right? So that's a skin, and then it transitions down in here. That's why. So that's how you get that nice transition to the lower eyelid, you know. But let's not focus on that. So I think it's important to see actually that there's a hollow part in here, and then in here the eyelid and the caruncle. And then smooth that out and make that a bit more uniform in here. So now we're putting that back, what we took off, we've taken off from at the start. Something like that, you know. And already it does give us a more integrated look, I would say. It looks more integrated, you know. So, and you can always change that as well. I think it goes even more inside, you know. So you can like use this damn standard. And I'm sure like you just hinted it, you didn't really like sculpt that, so I don't wanna like, you know, blame you or anyway. Yeah, exactly, like that's what I figured. But I'm just gonna, you know, mention that regardless. Alright, so here as well, gotta see that the upper eyelid actually hangs over the lower one. Something like this, you know. And then smooth that out. And then once we establish that, still got these just to fix. And here you can actually see that the corrugator goes, like what I usually try to do is like to transition them better in here. And you can sculpt that out if you want. You know, so right now with just these adjustments you got this shape in here, right? Which breaks that silhouette again, you know, it doesn't make it look just really one-dimensional or something. That's because of the corrugator going up here. think it's like it splits actually. So make that split really subtle and then smooth that out. And let's look at the reference again and see what information we can pick off. And the thing is, like, he's always have this specific expression, I guess, where his corrugator is really dominant. A nice mass, especially on this reference, actually. Here. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And you see also the break of the light. Here that highlight, right, and then it goes down, and then here you see definitely there's a volume coming up again. So that's really interesting. So here's a corrugator. It's really nice. Here as well. It's really horizontal. Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned, watch for that there's enough space from here to here, you know, because it always should, especially in the 3/4 view, it should always look really fleshy, you know, like looking at this, we got that silhouette, right, which is already really interesting. And I think having that established makes it much easier for us to work with. And let's focus in here a bit. So let's straighten that out a bit. And we need to transition that, blend that in. And that's not the eyebrow. So the eyebrow is on top. Oops. So if you work on this actually, Patrick, would you use the clay tubes, clay build-up, or? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So mainly I think professionals also have these go-to brushes, right? So they don't, I mean, because they work, and it's like knowing to get that, like getting to know that tool basically is key, because if you know what brush, like if you know a brush really well, I guess, like you can do a lot with that one brush. So basically you don't need the most fancy brushes in the world to get that. So right now let's mask it out and work on the orbital fold a bit more, because just looking at the lighting does help us getting that feel where it's a bit saggy. And we can always take a bit of volume back up top here, and it might be too strong, and that's something Patrick has to figure out if he finishes that portrait. But what I want to convey is that lower down there's really thin look to it, you know. I think that's what I want to convey from this. So especially in here, and I'm gonna up that more and try to make that arch not not this way, you know, not like this, rather the other way. I find it does give more of a natural look. And that's really strong on him as well. And then you can go this way. So let's move that out a bit and then see from the front. Usually it transitions, you know, if you use the move brush and you just move that a bit out, you have a better transition rather than sculpting that. It is the bro tip. There you go. Do you know what I mean? Like, it does give you that shade instead of doing this, you know. And also, like, from that angle, what I usually like to do is just get in there, just mark that area and just smooth that out. You know, it's really subtle though, and I think that's key as well, to make it really subtle as well. And what I mean, that's not anatomically correct, but like what I usually do is, like, if you have, that's basically this volume, right? Which you can definitely see in the reference that the light is not a right now my light, it's here, it is a continuous gradient, right? From here, if you will see that, and on him it actually breaks up a bit, so we know somewhere in here there's a volume change basically. So I'm just gonna double check on the reference, and let's close this one. So from this profile you see there's this nice volume in here, and there's a little breakup actually. It's really subtle though. It's such an interesting face. Such an interesting. Alright, so let's go back to ZBrush. And if we compare that, right, with this one, that's basically the distance his forehead is like, where this volume we've been working on is basically the same as his upper lip or his lips, if you see that, right? So that's something you can try to measure as well. And here you can see, if you do this, right, and you're gonna move the neck a bit more up. He does look a bit up right now, you know. So that's one thing where you can adjust that shape a bit. We're gonna focus on the forehead first, and let's see, move that up. And it's really prominent actually. So it's something like this, and right now we're just using move brush. And I'm gonna put that back in. And that breakup, what I usually like to do is like do this, right? And then I'm gonna smooth that from the top, and then from the other side, and now I can blend that in better by moving that in. It's just subtle changes, you know. I mean, we don't have to do a lot. It's just because Patrick did the base already, and it's just a little adjustments here and there, you know. So let's see. So now I feel more comfortable with this. And then we can start adjusting like the proportions or whatever it is, you know. But at least this is something you can start working. This is something you can work with, you know. So you see that, like it's also good to look from top and to see where it breaks up. And this is the breakup I was talking about, you know. So that's something. Oops. Do you see that light breaking up? That highlight, and then not like darker shade, and then it goes up again. That's basically what I was talking about. And here we can also see we need to adjust the bone a bit. And it's a constant thing about like blending in certain areas and smoothing out other areas. Alright. And I think that's definitely where I'm feeling more comfortable with. And now we can talk about the eyebrows, right? Now we can say they might start from here, right? And usually I don't like to sculpt them in. Right now I just want to see. So I think on his case it starts like something like here and then it goes up somewhere, whatever. Might be wrong though. Just looking at the ref now. So you see it's a transition from here. And it goes up a bit, whatever. But that's basically where the eyebrow is. Just gonna undo that. So it's not what some people do as well. Some people just really put them on the bone. like here. Hopefully you did that and not still doing. Right, so some people just really stick that up here. And the thing is, like, you need to have that transition, a better blend, so to speak, you know, like coming to there. And it's a movable thing as well, like on top of the skin. Do you know what I mean? So it does make it look more natural. So if we do that, but I'll leave that for you to figure out. And now let's see, 3/4, right? We got that nice silhouette breakup. Also in here, mark that a bit, we smooth that out. And now, like, you can decide if you have that expression sculpted in or not. You know, that split. Also make sure that to transition them better. So it's always a blend, right? You know, always try to blend them in some way. And just don't leave them hanging. You know, because we blend them, it's just a constant blend. It looks more natural already. And the thing is, like, we're still at the same poly count, which is cool. And it's a really solid base, Patrick, I have to say. Like, it's like, it's really fun to work on a clean, clean base without having to go up or down a lot, you know. So you see, so try to make the blends from the muscles and just don't make them hollow. Especially in here, that part in here, super interesting actually. There's a lot going on in here, and most people don't like sculpt them out, which is a shame. And then you can also start. You actually see how much is going on, right? Like there's a lot of concave and convex shapes in here, and also the eyelid, right? So let's see. It's always blending them together. And then if you need, you can always adjust them, right? Like you can always go in here, adjust them a bit. And because we got a nice mass in here already, it makes it easier for us to just mark our details, so to speak, right? And then have that thing, that split in here. And then you can sculpt that out a bit. So whatever you feel like, you don't necessarily have to do that in here. You can just leave completely symmetrical and it's all good. Doesn't matter. Oops. But yeah, I think that's one area. So let's double check in here. Was it this one? No, so from flat in here, I think it was close, you know, like, I mean, you got all the markings, basically everything was kind of right. It's just like looking at it, I think, at a certain area like this, you know, and you just start to just work on it. You make every markings right, and then it's hard to see everything in one picture. Fresh eyes, so let's see, you know, so that's a cool thing. So from here you can actually see the transformation, like from being flat, especially on this angle, you see, whoa, that's not too much, sorry. So from here to here, you know, that's not a lot. So from here to that's small. Oh, what? 3. That's not looking right. There you go. From 0 to 1, it does make it more natural, right? So it makes it more grounded. And now from here on, you can like say, okay, now I want to define and look properly at the reference, and even have a see-through, like what I do for the lunch crunches. And I think that should be the main points in here, right? Here, I think we covered that. Do you have some questions, like in terms of to go further? We can definitely push this further a bit if you want. If there's something you are interested in, the workflows or anything, like can be anything. It's just workflow or yep, go ahead. So you're asking me which way I would go, if that's correct? Yeah. Yeah. I think definitely that's the right way to go. So like you said, block, like make it this can be anything, could be from a sphere, could be like an extract, right? And then block it out. I think blocking it out is definitely helpful. What it does give you is it does give you a nice mesh where you can lay your cards on top of it, right? So, and also it gives you a better understanding of the volume, right, of the head shape. If that's short hair, you see, okay, what is working, what is not. So I think definitely that's the right way to go. And then later on you can decide if you want to do haircut, fiber mesh haircuts or whatever. But I think blocking out is the first thing you should do, you know. And I would do the same, to be honest. That's I think we probably do a combined thing. You definitely need something underneath, or like a texture underneath here, right? So maybe just project that hairstyle on top of it, right? So you got a nice base, and make it a bit darker as well. Like just a texture, can be anything. Like you can actually just copy, or you know, like use spotlight on it, and like have a nice texture in here. So it looks like the text thing is just projected on. And then the haircuts should just follow that, right? Just put them on top of it and make haircuts. And yeah. So basically the haircut texture is basically projected also on the scalp. So, you know. You know, if that would be the texture, I don't know, like, you know. Imagine these are textures. But you get the idea, I think. Yeah, so definitely do that. For eyebrows as well, eyebrows and eyelashes, I would also do cards, to be honest. And let's say one card, like this this is a polygon, right? That one plane, right? And inside that, I would make like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 alphas. Sorry, it's a bit low res. So let's say this is your plane, right? Your alpha plane. And I would definitely do I don't know, something like this. So I wouldn't start the alpha brush stroke from here, because if you do that, it's also for haircuts, every time you're gonna put that in the hair, you see that it starts from like skin to hair all of a sudden, right? Like you see that harsh transition. Like let's say here, that's your haircut. You see that, bam, that hard 90 degrees transition. So I would always make that haircut something with an alpha also on the bottom. And just place it on top of it, makes it look like there's a nice gradient, you know? Something like that. And also the eyebrows. And there could be multiple haircuts, you know, like this. My shitty drawing on top of it. Something like this, you know? If this is your planes, haircut planes. What it does give you is like, it gives you volume, like from the profile, so you see it's actually something. So yeah, do you have anything else you want me to cover? Lips look terrible. Do you think so? I don't think so. I think Mike wouldn't be happy with the ears. No, I think everything, as I said, it's actually a really nice base. Like, it's really it's really easy to work with. I mean, like this is not probably defined, so I don't want to. Yeah, exactly. So even looking from this, it's a nice base. Maybe the thing is on here, the traps are a bit massive and it's really flat in here as well. But I think, yeah, I don't want to focus on that because I'm sure it's not defined, you know. Definitely not. Also, like here, the transitioning to the jaw, to the neck actually is one thing where I like to break it up a bit as well. And also like the ear. So this here, right, that, I think that's almost on anybody. If you look at in the real world, it's almost, there's a really nice blend in here, you know. And even if you do this, you know, and especially the ear should, you know, that dent is mostly in here, up there, right? And if so, if you work on the sternocleidomastoid, I think is the full name. Yeah, I'm not so good with names, to be honest, with those names. So just giving that a bit of a transitioning, and and that's the thing, like, it's all fine and nice if you know the muscle names and you know where they are in the, and you can sculpt them, but it's a different story of like having skin on top, right? And make that transition is really hard. I think it's even harder to make it look, there's a muscle underneath but also skin on top. I think that's a really hard look to get. So and I sometimes struggle with that as well, like, so I try to blend with the clay build-up, and especially the jaw. That's one area where there's a really hard blend. It's really tricky to blend in, let's say, because here there's fat lying on top of it as well. Yeah, exactly. So here, and also the jaw, you know, the jaw muscle, which goes something like this. It's really hard to make that blend, so it does help you to blend the jaw a bit better, you know. And yeah, I think that's just something, I'm not saying like you don't know or something, I just want to emphasize on it, you know, like, no. So something like this, you know. And also, like, don't make it as sharp as possible. I think just break it up, make it more looking natural. And I think, yeah, like, oh yeah, that's, I think, something with what Mike mentioned as well, like that he has some trouble on his character actually right now. Could be wrong though. But I think I remember him saying something about that volume here from the nasal fold. You know, push that a bit. So something like, especially this area, I see some people struggle a lot, like sometimes it's like this, you know. And then everything is nice, and then all of a sudden it doesn't look right anymore. That's because of that volume. So be really careful with that, especially because it blends into that. And yeah, also like make sure that volume is a proper volume here. Alright. So also that thing here, it looks a bit flat, but you might know already and you didn't focus on it, but for the sake of it I just want to, like, you know. Yeah. You know, I mean, it helps as well to look from the top and also play with the light. It's something I need to do more often as well. Play with the light and see how it behaves. You know, even looking at the reference and look for the information where there's a highlight and the highlight breakup does help. And I think, yeah, I think that's one area I like to mark as well, doing this. You know, and then I work from here and then make that volume. And I look from top as well to make it more round, especially, and also like the lips. Something like this, you know. And make sure the mouth corners, they really get in. So what I try to do is take the move brush and I just hold Alt and then just move that in a bit. And then I can sculpt on top in here, just to get the mouth corners right, you know. And I blend, and again, it's always a blend, right? Don't worry. So you see, like, this volume needs to be in there, like, so even if you go in profile, make sure you get that inside, you know. This is extreme now, but like, just to emphasize what I mean. So just don't let it end there. I think that's also one thing which can help the natural look. So, you know, even this, and then you can define, okay, do I want them more up, more down, whatever, like, then you can define. But I think it's good to address those, let's say, just address those checkpoints, to so to say, like, always make sure the mouth has these indents, you know, and the eye has enough space for the eyelids. You know, just these, and if there's enough volume for the eye, between the eye and the eyelids, and see if it's correct. And looking at here, like, there needs to be a volume. And here, you know, it's always checking, see if you hit those checkpoints, I guess. At least that's what I'm thinking while I work. You know, and also the nasal fold, make it transition better. Even if it's too soft, you can always adjust the details later on. But if the base is there, you know, it's a good start. And then also, as I said, you can continue that line in here, you know. And then sculpt volume top, add a bit in here, you know. And that also is a nice transition to the lower eye bag, something like this. You know, and then you can blend that in. I think it's just make sure that this is as spherical as you can get, basically. You know, it helps to mark them. I mean, that's what you've been doing as well. Just mark those areas and then work those out. Especially on the eyes, just make sure it's spherical. At least have that spherical look. You know? And yeah. Is there anything else? But yeah, I think in terms of your anatomy skills, I think it's a solid base. It's just, I'm not sure, I just assume that you work like this most of the time, and then from time to time you zoom out, and then could be wrong though. Yeah. 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 I mean, it makes sense. It does make sense. Yeah, it's like really, really solid already. I really like it. I cannot say that too often. I actually would... I mean, right now your work is symmetrical, right? And I'm not sure what the end goal is. If that's going to be a real-time render, or if you just want to make a portrait in ZBrush. So depends on the goal, right? But like if it's a sculpt for ZBrush and you want to capture that expression or whatever, I would definitely go to see-through and see the expression basically, and try to sculpt the expression rather than the person. Because if you have that mentality to actually try to capture the essence of the expression, I would say, I think that's where more like a better art piece will come out of it. Because sometimes when people just do, especially portraits, they hit all the marks, right? And they hit all the marks, the see-through, everything's right, but like for some reason they just don't look like that person. And that's because of I think they don't capture the essence of the expression, I guess. That's what I want to say is like try to capture the feeling of the character rather than the actual like one-to-one anatomy or whatever, right? So I think that's really important. And then that's why I've been trying to do the see-through and the asymmetry like really early on. Because if you work too long on a symmetrical mode, you get in that mentality, okay, it has to be right, because you know it's symmetrical, there's like somewhat order in your mentality, you know, like this is breaking up, and then the longer you work on symmetrical, the harder it's going to be to not, you know, like, and then you start to think, okay, fuck, for some reason this looks wrong, and then you see all the wrongness, I guess, in your sculpt, and so you get super focused on doing that on your sculpt rather than on the expression, right? You don't make that character, you don't sculpt that expression anymore, you make that whoever that is, you know, you make that sculpt. You don't work on that person basically, or what your sculpt's trying to be. So I think, yeah, the see-through thing should early on as possible, and then yeah. Yeah. The thing is, I think in production you definitely have to, let's say this is your base, right? I think this is solid base. I would do a retopo out of this, right? And make a nice edge flow, whatever, all the edge flows and everything you need, and I'll definitely try to make it all quartz so it's easier to sculpt on it, and then put it back in ZBrush, and then don't put symmetry on, make it see-through, and then make that character, right? And in the studio I would definitely do something like this, but if it's just a personal, it's even fine if you just go from here and just work that character and then do a retopo, which might be a bit annoying, I guess, but like at the end of the day it doesn't matter. If it's going to be a portfolio piece, you might as well just put in the time, you know? So I think also in my project I'm doing basically what I have, which was retopoed already, but I'm not too happy with that retopo. So I think I'm gonna redo it again, right? So I have my high poly, just gonna do my high poly, then my retopo after. So it's not as bad, I guess. And with this as well, if this is, I'm not sure if this is Dynamesh, but it looks like it. So, but if you're doing Dynamesh, right, and you keep Dynameshing, you get same with the lunge crunch. I'm not sure if you have the same feeling, but for me, it's when we do the lunge crunches, I feel like it's more forgiving with the mistakes I'm making, even because it's a Dynamesh, and I can always Dynamesh it back, and I'm not married to my sculpt, I guess, you know. I don't take it as a darling. It's like, oh my god, I cannot change it because the topology will change and whatever. So I think that's also really cool to just Dynamesh your high poly and just make your high poly and then retopo after. There's benefits in both ways, but yeah, I think that's a good. I think for you as well, and just make that high poly now with Dynamesh. Go a bit higher later on. I think this resolution is enough. It can keep you like definitely for like hours, probably 10 hours or whatever. Honestly, like a lot. Like from this resolution I can do a lot, you know, like it gives you a lot. And then if you really need like looking at the folds and like try the details and work out these areas, right, then you go up. But with this, where you are right now, I think even that forces you to go like this distance to have it really sharp, right? Whereas in this, it's like you start to see the polygons. It's like, oh, it doesn't look as cool. So I think just make Dynamesh. I would suggest that to you, basically recommend it to you. And then just don't worry about honestly, just get your mind out of with retopo. Just make your high poly as cool looking as possible, I guess, and that should be fine. Yeah. So yeah, dude, I think if you that portrait's gonna be really cool. No, don't, honestly, it's really cool. The base is there. Base there. It's definitely. Yeah, I think Mike. Don't show this to Mike. Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Alright. Yeah, I think the troughs are a bit too wide a bit, and it's a bit too flat. But I mean, you know. You know it, bro. Yeah, it's like... It's really cool, man. I can't wait to see that finished. Oh, okay, cool. So you're like just... So the end screenshot, beauty shot would be like this close, right? I guess. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So that's a definitely a nice close-up. So something like this, you know. So... Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Cool, man. Like, I think that's really... That's a nice project as well. It's long enough and it's also short in a sense, you know, like if it's like cut up like that and then you get a bit of cloth or whatever jacket it is, you know, I think that should be cool. So yeah, I'm gonna save that, and then if that's fine with you. Well, how are we on time actually? I've paused. That's almost there. I mean, we start a bit late as well, so we can definitely. So yeah, was that in general useful for you? Interesting. Yeah. The Procerus, Procerus, and the Corrugator, Corrugator. It's basically those two which you already painted as well, which is really funny. Like the Corrugator looks, that's the light blue one, which is really funny, and the orbital foot, the green one, right, and the blue one. The Procerus, which is really really funny. But yeah, like I think, yeah, Do you feel comfortable with these changes, or don't you agree at all? So, but you know, subtle changes, right? Subtle changes, and you were not miles off. You know, it's just this one big thing here, which was like a chain reaction to everything else, right? Then you try to fix that and make that happening, and then it's like a chain reaction if that base is not there. So definitely double check here. This is actually really satisfying to look at like this. So that's one, and that's from you. Oops. Cool, man. No, was a pleasure as well. Like, honestly, don't. And yeah, keep us updated in the Discord so we know how you're going with this. I can send you this file, and then it should be good. Awesome. So I'm just gonna wrap this up. So thank you for whoever's watching. Thank you, Patrick, for actually giving me that model. So thanks for that. Yeah, so don't worry. Alright, so thank you all, and we see you next time. Bye.